Thank you guys for everybody to come here. I did not sleep for the past 48 hours, so if I am slow and not understanding your questions, I apologize in advance. So how to recognize your startup's critical inflection points is a great talk. I am happy to be here and sharing my journey for the past 3.5 years, 4 years of building Koding. I want to actually ask you first, how many entrepreneurs are in the audience? I see. So the most of you are entrepreneurs. Of those entrepreneurs, how many of you are technical? I see. How many developers in the audience? Okay. And I would assume the rest of you are somewhat connected to startups or have an idea to how to get this going. So who are the idea stage people? They are the most exciting ones. Okay, we have it. Cool. So I'll tell you a little bit about Koding. So while making this presentation, I remembered my past days listening to presentations, and I don't like them. Therefore, I made it in a way that it is more practical, more hands-on. Like I have used my startup to tell you my story versus a general story, because stories don't really come together if you're creating a Uber versus Facebook versus YouTube versus an enterprise startup. So those things, like if I told you, if I made the lessons that I learned from Koding into a boilerplate startup, that would be too generic. Probably you wouldn't get anything out of it. Like, you know, you could just see those slides on the internet. So I just want to make this one super personal. So if you guys have questions, if you guys want to just, you know, learn something specific, I will leave enough time for you to ask those questions and I will answer them. So, Koding has started, just a little bit of a background. Koding is my fourth startup, so I wasn't really a beginner when I started this one. But this is my first startup in the United States. So it is special in that case. I came to the United States because I think that was the place to start a startup at the time. So right now I'm seeing all these things are appearing around the world. Wherever you are, you have the academies, you have the mentors, you have lots of resources. At the time we didn't have them, so therefore San Francisco was a good choice for me to be. Koding started as a frustration. I have solved the 80% of the problems that wasted 50% of my life in this product, and I had domain expertise. I ran software companies of 110 people. That was another startup of mine. At the time we called it a company. So we worked for General Electric, Barnes Noble kind of enterprise customers, and in my entire life I've worked on getting developers productive, and that was the most frustrating experience to me. So we built Koding. I'm going to tell you about Koding and why we built Koding and what are the functionalities within that, so that you have the idea why we built it. And I'm not going to go into technical details of it, but I'm going to make it like entrepreneur friendly and startup friendly. And I'm going to tell you about our PR, online marketing, and developer marketing, and all sorts of things that are around critical inflection points. So let's get started. So to recognize your startup's critical inflection points, you have to recognize a startup. So since I'm a programmer since the age of 12, I wrote a little program here that has 6 lines. So at first you have a problem. So you identified a problem, and identifying a problem is maybe the most important task of your journey. So don't believe in people who says that you don't have to identify it, you will just get to it by iteration. They are lying to you. It is not that easy. So you have to actually understand this problem, and actually you have to believe in it. You have to say to yourself that if I made this, I would use it. If I made this, other people would use it. So you have to have some sort of a solution in your mind, and if you don't have the 100% of the solution, then that's okay. We'll get to that. So couple of examples I can give you. Some people say that, or maybe I'll use Paul Graham's example. So he says that, here's an idea. I have a social network for pets. And if I have a dog, I'll put him on there, and everybody who has a dog, they'll put on there, and then we'll just, share some funny updates about them. So when you show this to people, they go like, wow, that's an interesting idea. You should definitely do it. In case you're not talking to your dad or your mom. But if you ask them this critical question, would you use it? Then they go like, yeah, maybe I don't because I don't have a puppy, and then you go like, okay, I'll ask someone who has a puppy, and then they go like, I wouldn't use it, but I'm sure other people would. So Paul Graham argues that if you extrapolate that data point to the rest of the human population, you have 0 users because everybody thinks everybody else will use it. So you have to have a solution, and you believe in that solution. You would use it. Personally, if you're not going to use it, please do not build that product, because you are not a user. You will not be able to build it. So, so everything that I say has exceptions, by the way. But in general, these are now good rules of thumbs. So then you come up with a product. So in this slide deck, I'm going to skip the product. I'm not going to talk about how to build a great product, because that will take another 5 hours of talking. So building a great product is nothing that you should underestimate. So building a great product, even if you have a great problem and great solution, your product sucks, no one is going to use it. If they find it too cumbersome, or if they find it not elegant, and in today's standards, if it's not something that they can comprehend in the first 5 seconds of looking at your website, they will not use it. And therefore we chose the name Koding as a name, because you don't get to name your company Apple anymore, because people don't understand what Apple does unless you're Apple. So even it starts from your domain name, Koding.com. What does it do? Something to do with coding. So I guess it's a technical product. It's for developers. So you have some ideas in your mind before you even come to the website. And then you start building your product from that mindset. Like, what can I do to make people understand what my product is in the first 5 seconds? So the first 5 seconds rule applies to everything, and that's, I hope that one day you'll meet again, that we'll talk about this product. But what we have inspired by in the product is the viral content on the internet. I have personally spent 3 weeks on the internet to see what content gets shared, what content gets forwarded. And you guys know the most shared content is cats. And most shared content is cats in the form of a meme. So I spent 3 weeks on the internet checking how many million, like the million views viral content on YouTube, what videos actually get shared and gets forwarded. Because that means when you look at that thing, when you look at that meme, it immediately makes you smile or makes you happy, and you know what to do with it. Forward. So the forwardability of your website is going to determine your success from the beginning, because even if someone non-technical, not understanding your product or not going to use your product, at least should be able to forward it to a friend and say, hey Mike, you gotta check this out. I saw something, I think it is around the things that you want to do. So product starts from there, and then we will get into the product retention and stuff. So execution. This is the hairiest part, which I'm going to cover in detail, because I guess people who are entrepreneurs, people who want to be entrepreneurs, are going to benefit a great deal from this, and lots of lessons are learned here, because most people give up on this stage or they sell their companies. So the 5th point, collecting data. collecting data is very tricky. So collecting data is not a stupid endeavor that you just go and ask every random person and then collect 1,000 people and then you say 900 people said that they would never use Facebook. If they had collected data, that would have been the result. So collecting data is very, very, very crucial step. And my analogy to that is matchmaking. Who would you trust to arrange a date for you is how you collect that data. So I don't care if a million people think that I have to date this person versus a friend of mine that I really trust his opinion. He's a stakeholder. I know his experience is matching. I trust him. And if he says that you should meet that person in a business context, in a personal context, I would trust that person. So when you collect data, keep in mind you have to ask correct questions. I'll give you examples of that. And then you are going to collect this data from different silos of people. So you're going to collect data from your visitors, from your users, from your customers, and from the stakeholders. And in general, visitors will include the people who will forward your product, but not actually are going to use it. And at the fifth, you will most likely realize that you have failed. And that's how you go to the sixth and then start over. So every startup that I know of at least have had 5 iterations of this one. So there are actually 25 times that you go through these steps, then you get to the hang of it. You go like, okay, my initial idea was good, but it wasn't complete. It was okay, but these people found these feature set missing. And then all those problem iterations, you will sometimes find out that this entire problem solution that you found out was wrong. And in the iteration, you go and fix it. So here's a conflict. I told you people just told you that problem solution doesn't matter, you can start, and then I told you that they are lying. Is this nuance? They are lying because the first time you try something, you have to believe in it passionately. You believe that that is the way to go. You don't go with this random mindset, oh, okay, it's a startup, it has a domain name, it has a product looking something, and people should use this. No, you are passionate, you collected data, you asked people, you then created this thing and you executed it, then you collected data, and if that place is the place that you have failed and you have to pivot to a new different problem and solution that is somewhat similar to what you started with, then it is okay that you go down that route. And there are lots of startups that actually succeeded by this. But no one that I know, no one that I've heard of have succeeded with a random idea that they didn't know anything about. So let's define the problem. So I told you about the actors, visitors, users, customers, and third parties. And I believe these are the 4 actors that will make you succeed if you focus on them in different segments. So on coding, we defined the problem in 2009. So this is the problem that wasted half of my professional life, like getting this guy to write code for this company and getting this guy to not be frustrated. He's just like not even talking right now because it is so hard to go through these cables and then write the first line of code to any company. So tomorrow, if you're going to hire someone to your company, entrepreneur, non-entrepreneur, you are going to hire developers. And when you hire them, it's a pain in the butt to get them to write first 5 lines of code. So I'll explain to you how that is painful. But first, let's go through the actors. So there's the developer, and developer needs to go through the sysadmins. So sysadmins are, in this picture, I depicted them as telephone operators of 1950s. Now, we have these devices we call anywhere in the world. We don't really care at the recipient, we just dial the number, and then we get there. But on companies, this guy needs to get so much information from this guy, the SSH key, FTP keys, and servers are here, we are using this cloud, we are using this stack, this servers, Ruby, Apache, Tomcat, whatever. that you guys are using, this guy needs to talk to this guy for so long. And there is another problem that I don't want to put it in a slide. This guy is the highly introverted individual. He doesn't want to talk. Like, he hates talking. He kind of likes computers and he makes this thing possible, but then this guy cannot talk to this guy. And to be honest, this guy is fairly introverted as well. He's a developer, so he doesn't really like to get on the phone and fix his problems. He just says, everything should be on my screen, everything should be documented, everything should be on the code repository. But let me break this to you. Nothing is in the code repository, document is outdated, and nobody knows what to do. So in this case, this is the problem that I needed to fix. I felt like if this problem continues, I cannot hire people from Malaysia to my startup in San Francisco, because with the time zone included in this picture, it just becomes unbearably complex. So the reason that San Francisco is so hungry for developers is because we cannot hire globally. And this picture, if this is resolved, and I'm going to show you how we did it, it is going to change how we hire developers and how we work with them. So I knew this problem existed because of my own experience. I knew if I could solve this problem, a lot of people would benefit from this. I knew most of these people because I worked for them for so long. And I knew these companies are increasing at the rate that we can't even keep up. Maybe you guys have heard in San Francisco, developer salaries actually gone up to $250,000 a year. And if this number appeals to you and you go like, wow, I gotta go there, no, don't do it, because in 2 years it's going to go down. So it is at a point where you can't scale this anymore. It's not going to be $500,000 before the industry collapses back again, because that's the self-regulation. So let me talk a little bit about these four actors. So the visitors are the ones that are going to forward your solution to their friends, and users are going to be these guys. Customers are going to be these guys in my example, because I'm going to sell to these people. I'm going to get these people on the platform. I'm not going to sell it to my users. My users should just say, wow, this is an amazing platform. I want to be on it. And this guy should say, I will pay any amount to get this problem resolved. So third parties is interesting. Third parties is kind of the ecosystem that will support your product, that will support you to succeed, because if you succeed, they succeed. Think of it as Apple's App Store. So iPhone without apps is nothing. So if you create an ecosystem around your product, or while you are solving the solution, this problem, if a lot of people benefit from it, especially established companies, whether you are an ad management software, or you are Uber, or you are this, or you are that, if your product makes big companies happy, then they will support your startup. They will open up their Rolodexes, they will find you customers, they will give you discounts, they will help you in any capacity that they have to make your company successful. So, elaborating on the problem, right now, the previous picture showed you how difficult this is. This is a little bit of, let me show you, today the offices are built. So you have a Malaysia office, San Francisco office, New York office. Every person has a laptop, and the laptops need to get the software because you want to build this cool iPhone app, and everybody needs to set up their laptops to do that. And then they go like, I'm stuck, and then people say install Skype, install Slack, install screen sharing software, install a lot of things to these laptops so that you can talk to this guy. Where is that guy? That guy is in another office, and that office has 8 hours of time zone difference, and you can't really, make these people work together very easily. And this is what we are looking at today. So people want to communicate, people say I'm stuck. The collaboration and manual configuration is making software development really easy, really hard. And every new team member takes 2 weeks to a month to be productive in your system. in your company. So we say that we can remove all these things by moving their development environments to the cloud so that everybody can join from anywhere and they don't have to set up their laptops. Everything is set up there, and collaboration, configuration, and communication is solved. So this is the problem, right? That this is the problem. I elaborated the problem to you, and let's now ask people what they think about this problem. So this year we passed 1 million developers on the platform by January. This is the data from there, but even before we started, I believed in this problem, and I actually ran it by my friends and the companies that I know about. And the company that I was a CTO of paid us $5,000 a month so that me and my brother could start building this on the side. So my first data set was correct enough so that I had my first customer the first year that I built the product. But now I'm going to go through this one with you. So in your company, how much time does it take to get set up? So 50,000 people said, if I hire a developer, this is very sad. I actually was not thinking this would be the case in 2015, but it is the case. So 80% said it takes 4 weeks. So this includes you buy a laptop to your developer, you configure that laptop, you download Apache, Tomcat, Ruby, whatever that your company is using, you get stuck. Something doesn't work because you have the new MacBook, or you use Linux, or your developer uses Windows. So you waste others' time and you repeat this process until 4 weeks have passed. And then to be productive, so someone else wrote code. So you are in the first year of your startup, and then history of the project is hidden. Nobody knows about it anymore. You have had so many brainstorming about that project, so you decided to use one database versus another, one programming language versus another. You have made a lot of decisions, but this decision is not obvious to a person who just joined your company. So asking questions to total strangers. So this is very important. We force developers and sysadmins to talk to each other, where we shouldn't have to do that to those people. Like the data should be organically available to everybody in the company. So this creates the second problem. That's a validation to the problem that I have told you guys about. So this is the one that is the biggest killer. So you are stuck with a problem, and then you know who to ask the question. So as a founder, this is very, very frustrating process to me, because when someone gets stuck, they immediately find me. I mean, in the beginning of my startup, they go like, hey, Devrim, who do I ask this question to? And then I go, okay, go ask Chris. And then they go, where's Chris? It's second floor. And then he goes, taps on the shoulder, hey, Chris, could you help me out? And Chris says, what about 4 p.m. tomorrow? And then this person is like, it's 10 a.m. today, but I guess I will find something to do till 4 p.m. tomorrow. And they don't find anything to do till 4 p.m. tomorrow, so then they waste a day, a week, waiting for a solution. So this is after setting up your computer, you understand how the code is written, and then every week you have at least 1 or 2 questions that you wait at least 8 hours a week. So when we ask these questions, then the problem becomes very obvious. It's not only in my head, it's not only, some people believe this is correct problem definition. People verify that this data points are actually really valid, and it results in productivity loss. It is massive. So, solution is 5 minutes, because I have the idea. I know how this should work. I know how to automate this. This is my domain expertise. This is very important. I know this problem because I've been through that 10,000 times. And this is where it becomes really, really important that you know the problem that you are solving. So I'll cut this short, but this is important for you to understand how we solve the problem. So I don't really mean to pitch coding to you guys, don't get me wrong, but I am trying to tell you my story, how I approach this. Through my story, I will get your questions
and then you will know how we did it, so that you can extrapolate from there, and then you can, apply these to you. So to me, solution was really simple, and it had to stay simple. I said that, okay, why don't we just make a text file, and then that text file says, pull these servers from Amazon, and then install Java, Tomcat, Ruby, whatever, even if you want Hadoop clusters, or as technical as you want to be. And then you say, go to Cloudflare and add a domain, devrim.whatever.com, and then you say to Slack at the end of the process, Devrim has just joined our team. And through this text file, the configuration step is something that developers no longer need to deal with. So this was a very, very obvious solution to the server provisioning problem. We don't care what people are using. You use MacBook, or you use Windows, or you use Linux, or you use the computer that's going to come tomorrow. We don't even know. Only thing that you need is a browser. And that's what we did, a simple text file to actually just make server provisioning super simple. Even for the CEOs that are non-technical, they should be able to write this to a point where they say, I see, now I have to include my sysadmin to make this perfect. So we made it super simple to make this file. Then the second problem. You don't see it really clearly, but this is the Koding's interface. So here, we made the servers. So you are a developer, you join this company, you are greeted with a Facebook-like platform. So once you are done with the servers, you didn't have to do anything to do them, but still you have questions. You want to know what people are in the company. So one thing you don't know in a company is that who is a really good person to ask a question to, who is a jerk, who is going to insult my question, who is going to call me stupid if I ask a question, and which, as a developer, I know it from IRC channels, because when you ask a question, that's the response you get. What a stupid question that is. Why would you have to ask that question? So this is the typical reaction from a random developer. So, but in a company context, since everybody needs to be friendly with each other, we have created these feeds. So the feed is basically just like Facebook. But if you are a JavaScript developer, only thing you need to do is to click on hashtag JavaScript, and then everybody who ever said anything about JavaScript will be on this feed. So you do not lose information. This feed can start from last year that your project has started. As a JavaScript developer, you can scroll up that feed, and then you can understand, wow, this guy is a really good guy, and he helped a lot of people. So in that case, you don't go back to the founder or whomever hired you. You can just see on this feed, Steve is actually a great person to ask this question to, and you click on his name, and then he comes in the browser, looks at your terminal, looks at your code, and you don't care where this person is. If he's upstairs or if he's in Malaysia, you don't worry about it anymore. So then you show him your question, you say, I have a problem on the line 17, and this is the result that I'm getting. He will be able to type commands to your terminal and solve your problem. So we introduce our solution that way. So we execute this problem, we execute this solution properly is our next challenge. And execution is harder than everything else I talked about. Because you make, maybe the perfect analogy for this is you build a Ferrari on a Chinese mountain. And if you believe people will come and take that Ferrari and drive down, you are mistaken. So when you make a great product, you realize that you don't have enough time because you've already spent a lot of money building the product. You've spent a lot of money trying to hire people, trying to make things work. At the same time, you have raised maybe 12 months, 18 months worth of runway, and you are running out. If this product that you built doesn't show traction, you are going to be dead. And no one is going to pull you back from that tank because everybody knows that 9 out of 10 startups fail. And in that case, when you are failing, people show no mercy. So when you're failing, people go like, yeah, sure, you know, it's fine. You'll start another thing. I mean, I spent 4 years of my lifetime thinking about this product. I don't want it to die. So two things. One, sometimes it is good that your startup dies because you did not do it right and people are not going to use it and you are forcing the situation. And this is besides this talk. I am assuming you have a great product, but you have to execute really fast. And if you want to execute it, let's go through these things. First, this is a great chart from Dave McClure, by the way. I credited him on the other slide. I forgot it here. It just went down here. So this is the acquisition. There are 5 steps. So you have to acquire people. So this, everybody goes through this channel, even the visitors, users, customers, third parties. So this 5-second rule applies here. So then they come to your homepage. Here, they either forward your website. Maybe let's start from the worst case story. Here to there, maybe they go like, hey, what the hell is this? I don't understand. I don't know anything about this. I can't even forward this. So in that case, you are failing your acquisition. Your acquisition should at least result in a forward to a person that could be interested with the product. So to acquire users, you do all these things. I'm going to go over them very quickly. So on your homepage, if someone signs up to your product, registers, then we are on the second level. We are on the activation. So when we activated the user, your product features, everything about your product, if they love your product, they stay in the product. So we call that retention. So if they don't stay in the product, there are 2 things that we can extrapolate from there. A, your product sucks and people just don't like to use it. They thought it is good. They are in here, but what they saw was not good enough. So that's the first thing. So then in that case, you fix the problems of your product. B, the retention can be activated by other things. Maybe you are not sending them emails, you don't notify them enough. The retention can be optimized that way, but you have to have at least significant amount of active users. Once people are activated, they retain in the product, and then you marginally improve that with emails and alerts. If I want to just add this here, people make this mistake a lot, and it's very annoying, that your product sucks, and on top of it, you keep emailing people. Why don't you come to my product? Why don't you use it? Do you not like it? It's like, dude, your product sucks and I don't want to use it. That's it. That's it. Like, your emails are not going to make your product better. I can click that link, come back to your product, and then I will still think that it sucks. So it doesn't, don't do that mistake, because when you fix your product, you send another alert. And I'm going to give you some examples of that. So do not keep sending people emails. Not even 3. Just, Facebook did not use anything like this. Google have never sent you an email. You can all attest to that fact. And today, you hire a marketer, and that marketer, the first thing he does, goes to Tout app or Intercom or whatever dumb product there is to send email, and then they just write funny content, and then they try to get the customers in. That's not a good idea. This is what Facebook did. If some friend of mine invited me, they sent me an email. Someone uploaded a picture, someone responded to a comment of yours. Those are non-intrusive things. And then you write blogs and content. So here's how you, on the 4th section, here's how you're going to measure your startup's success. This is also called Net Promoter Score. So how many people that come into your product refer others to come and use it? So this is what we call referral. So in the beginning of Koding, when we were 20,000 users to 100,000 users, we were only private beta. We only sent out 1,000 invites a day. So they came, they leave their emails, because we were not ready. This was not a deliberate marketing campaign, because we give computers to people. We couldn't really support 100,000 computers in a given day. So we gave 1,000 every day, and 2 out of 3 people referred their friends. We said, you can invite your friend into the company, into Koding. We'll give you 3 invites. And then from there, we saw every 3 people, so like 70% of them invited their friends, and that's how we grew, and that's how the referrals are really good, because they don't come and swear at your product, oh, this sucks, even if it does. Then because they come through a friend of theirs, they give their feedback back to that person versus going and writing on Twitter that I don't like this product. So the last part is the revenue, and that is through business development, and this is very important. This is the company section that I have shown you. I believe in products where the revenue is the first target. You can delay it, but your product roadmap should show revenue at some point. Koding has raised $20 million up to date without revenue. That is okay. But we always knew where we were going to make money, and we executed towards that goal. And it included first making 1.5 million people happy, then they would refer our product to their companies that they work for. So we released the community version. So 2004, January, we were at 100,000 users, and at the Q4, we were at 1 million people. So we added 900,000 people at this scale. So this is a lot of sleepless nights. This more looks like a Wall Street stock, but on this chart it looks pretty. It was not pretty. It was a lot of work. It was a lot of failure. It was a lot of server downtimes. And then we saw the returning people and returning bi-weekly people were stably following this trend, and that was a verification for us that we did something good. And from the computers, the core of Koding is not a social network, it's not a chat platform, it is actually because of the compute problems we exist. So this was very important to us. This is our core metric. How many people of these people used our compute resources? That was the metric that I wanted to actually look for. I didn't want people to come and chat with each other. We wanted them to use computers. And then we saw 160 million compute hours used. So I'm proud to say that we have turned on 600,000 VMs last December, and we broke Amazon's dashboards. They could never tell us like how many VMs are on. They actually asked us to go to Seattle and then said, guys, what are you guys doing? So the entire Amazon was front of us, and then they were like, okay, how do we make this better? How do we make this better? Please tell us, like, how do you become the second largest VM consumer after Netflix? That's what we heard from them, and it was a really good moment for me to see that we came that far. So these are all the metrics around it, and we have 1 billion lines of code plus 58% from US and 36% active once a month. So this was a good year for us. This is all 2014. So you make those metrics, and then you put them together, and then you see how they are using your product. So we collect data everywhere. So while building a product, this looks like the secondary thing, and it was really hard while trying to keep the servers running and at the same time really understand how users are doing it, because this is a lot of work. You have to put things in the correct places. So we saw social interactions are taking place. People are generating topics. You remember the hashtag JavaScript, hashtag this, hashtag that. And then it is increasing this way. And then we released private messages and those collaborations. And as soon as we released it, it went this way. And this is very important while you are building the product. Sometimes people just add things on top of each other and not really understand what people are using. When you see these things, you understand, A, you are on the right path, and then the things that I'm not showing you here is the ones that failed. We introduced something, we said, okay, this feature is cool, they will use it, but no one really cared. So we then take them out of the product, or we just grandfather the previous users, because when you introduce a product feature, some people like it, say that 100 people or 1,000 people likes it, and then you take it away, they start complaining about it. So there is a risk to introducing wrong feature sets. So if you collect data around retention and usage, this will be your guide to what to do next. And then from then, we even dive deeper. So we give people terminals, and then we know what commands that they are running. And from here, we can say most of them install MySQL, PHP MyAdmin. So these are the platforms that are being used. And that tells us that these are the most of the questions that we will receive. So we immediately start writing content. So if people get stuck on installing WordPress, we have 5 blog posts that is covering this. And then users actually start to help each other. We did this on a blog because, believe it or not, although we have hashtags, we have everything, people are accustomed to do things. They will just type things to Google because that's how they learned how to ask for information. So even if it exists in our platform, we had to move it to a separate blog so people could find it and share those links with each other. This one, especially in the middle, one lesson that I have learned from one of our investors, it's a very well-known book. I can't remember its name, but data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. So they say there are 4 steps to actually make a decision. So data is logs. So say that I know everybody's personal information in this room. So we are maybe 100 people, and I know when you are born, gender diversity and everything. So that's data. That doesn't do anything for me. It's just that I have a list of things. So knowledge is 50% of you are female. It's knowledge. So if 50% of you are female, then I must cover this and that topic is knowledge. So the wisdom is, if I'm going to keep on having these sessions where 50% are going to be female, I must do X, Y, and Z. So here, nobody tells us what their proficiency on language levels. They deduce this information. If you install MongoDB successfully, then we understand you are at least a novice level programmer. And if you did Meteor.js, you fall into this expert category. I'm making this up, it's not actual, but I'm just telling you, this is the data from here. We have the knowledge, and then if we build a product out of this middle section, then we are wise. We are making wise product decisions. So that's how you get to, for example, if you call Uber today as a customer, they know how much you are spending and how valuable customer you are, and what kind of customer service you should receive based on that is a wise decision that they make, because if I'm using it a lot, they treat me very, very carefully. If I ask for a refund, they give me immediately because they know it's the wise thing to do. They don't want to piss me off for $5 of a dispute. So this is what we do. We take these information and then we make product decisions based on this one. So product roadmap for monetization and revenue. The reason we spent money without revenue, because we said that first we need to get the 1 million developers, because if 1 million developers are not on the platform, we are not significant. We are not an okay product. Developers should love us before we get to the revenue, because I knew, being a developer myself, I'm just not going to choose a product that my CEO has chosen for me. I will actually hate it. Even if it's a good product, I'm like, you know what? We don't use it. We developers are a different segment of the market. We find the products ourselves, and we actually escalate it to the management. We go say, this is the product we should use. I love this product. We have to use it in our company. And therefore, we first said, let's get 1 million developers. That's a good base. That means that we are significant, and we will be known by the management next. So in 2015, we will get 1,000 companies to code online. So the product that you saw is only in private beta. We are still doing the same trick. We only have select amount of companies to try that product out before we release it to the general public, and hopefully within this month we are going to release it to the general public. Tests are going really good. So in 2016, we are aiming all the development teams in the world, and I don't mean it lightly, I mean it literally, have a new address. So this is your company.koding.com is where you are going to develop your next project, and that's our goal. And this is the basic timeline. We got seed funded in 2012, 2013 was a private beta, we did the public launch on 2014, and June 2015 launched Teams Enterprise version. So as you see, this is already delayed for 3 months, and that happens to every startup. And product roadmap kind of looks like this. So you actually know what needs to get done at what time. Even if it is not correct, this gives you kind of sort of a mental mind map where and what needs to get done. So you break down your software, and then there are lots of things to actually manage here. If you don't have this high-level view of your product, you won't be executing perfectly. So we collected data before we built the product. We collected data while people are using the product. And now for the future. So what do your users want? So then we asked again the 50,000 users, what do you want to see in coding in the future? So 16% said, I want to say hashtag PHP, I got a problem, here it is, and someone comes and helps them for $10 for 10 minutes. And 20% said, I want to connect my own computer. Yes, okay, cloud is cool, but it is expensive, and I want to use my own computer to do these things. We said yes, and we delivered it. And 64% asked for the Teams and Enterprise version, which is what we built this year. So, I guess, 1 second. I'm giving you a lot of information. 12:22, is that 10 minutes later? It's going to be 1 hour, right? Okay. So, this is the marketing part. Before I get to marketing, let me take like 2 questions because I covered a lot of ground here. If you have any questions, I can take 1 or 2 right now. Sure. Yes. Yes. So funding is to find those people. So when we went to investors, we didn't tell them that we will, double their money with the revenue. We just said we are going to, this is our plan, and in the beginning of our plan is to get to the users. So no one asked us the question, why are you not making money? Funny that you asked that. We have introduced pricing, and we are losing money. We did pricing because our active users wanted more features, and we were like, okay, if we don't introduce those features, then we will lose our most active users to our competition. So we introduced $10 a month pricing. Now we have 6,000 or something subscriptions on it. We are losing $3 a subscription. So even pricing didn't get us to the revenue, it got us to the revenue, but we are losing money, $3 a subscription, and it was a part of the plan. Yes. Exactly. So that may be a question of how to find your investors. I did that because my first investor was the same person that I sat on the boards with, and he was a developer, and he wouldn't let us go through revenue. He was the one that said, we first need to get the 1 million developers and before everything starts. But if I went to any other VC, even in the Valley, they would say, hey, when is the pricing? When is the revenue? When are you going to get there? So you don't want that person on your board because he's going to just start to lead you the wrong direction. My investors, I said, you know what? We are not going to make money until 1 million developers are on the platform. And I only took the ones that understands that premise. I'll take one more. None. We had pivoted 0 times. Yes. So I actually have, if it was my computer, I would show you our first pitch deck in 2012. It included this entire product roadmap. And I'm not super proud of it, but I think it's an accomplishment that, you nailed the problem and then you establish a solution that people resonate with. And I don't mean to say people who pivot are not good enough. Some pivots are, better than the first product. But in our case, I really knew this problem would exist, and I really knew this problem could be solved, should be solved this way. We pivoted in how we executed things. So there was a board discussion, to your point as well, 2014 February, when we had 100,000 people before we did our first marketing. In that board meeting, I told the board, I said, look, now we have 100,000 users. We could either build the Teams product right now and execute towards companies and then start generating revenue. Or we could do users, but we couldn't do both because we were only 12 people, and there were only things that you could, if you start revenue, you have to have sales people, marketing people, business development people. The million people was only developers. So the marketing person was me. So that looked like the direction that we should take, and it was board approved direction. In that case, we didn't create any frictions. So how did we get to million users? This is a lot about developer marketing, and that's why I couldn't make a generic presentation for you guys, because this changes per product. So if you're doing a Groupon-like product, if you're doing, I don't know, Uber, if you're doing Facebook, like all sorts of different things will require different marketing, and this is what we did. I used cats for students. This cat visual actually converted more people than any other visual. So we said that, okay, and then through my research of marketing, I'll give you one example. So there's this baby food company, very successful in Europe. They have this advertisement of babies crying and babies eating the baby food and then babies smiling and happy. So they said this is an amazing product and everything is working fine, and then they wanted to expand their operations to Morocco. And when they executed the same campaign, they executed the same product, they saw no success whatsoever. It was almost zero, because they first thought it's the food, the culture is different, Moroccan people don't like baby foods, they were like thinking a lot about those things. But the actual thing, someone figured it out, Moroccans write in Arabic letters, and you read from right to left, and in that case, baby is happy eating food and is unhappy. So that really didn't fly. So from these kind of experiences, I would recommend you read about how people perceive things. And from this thing, that what you are probably not seeing is, here's a laptop, and this cat and that cat is actually looking at the laptop. So from the marketing, what we have found, what I have found, is the eyes of these cats are looking here, and you read this instead of looking at what they are looking at. So this, if the cats were looking at this direction, or if the cats were looking at you, you would only look at the cats and not read the text. But now you're looking at what cats are looking at, and then there is the message that I want you to read. And this had 1,300% more conversion on our marketing pages. So we had this global hackathon. Global hackathon is also a manifestation of why we built the product. We wanted everybody from around the world to come together, find their teammates, and write code together on our platform. And we have 65,000 developers apply from 922 cities. And we were blown away by this. There was a team, one member from Jerusalem, one member from Tel Aviv, one member from Stanford University, come together and write code, apply to this hackathon. We became the #2 trending GitHub repository. 517 projects submitted, and we had 270,000 signups in this entirety of this campaign. So this happened 2014 December. So if you want to actually read more, then you will go to coding.com/hackathon, GitHub hackathon, twitter.com hackathon. People shared this, people forwarded this. Like this kind of is everything I have learned through marketing of coding. And this was amazingly successful. So 2 lessons. First, really care about how you deploy your message, because people really don't care on their Facebook feed, something just appears. It could be a shampoo, it could be this, it could be that. People actually have eyes to just not look at those things. If you want people to look at it, use cats. Joking aside, use something that you would want to look at. Like, what would it be that you would, it will trigger your attention? If I just put you this and then say, this is the best water, well, you don't even care. But if a cute puppy is actually drinking this water, that might be interesting for this water. Or you have something that when you look at it as a person, you go like, wow, this is really cool. What is it? That triggers that reaction. You're curious about this visual, and then you read what these cats are reading, and then you're interested, you click on it. So the second one, crazy 250 terabyte week. So I'm going to tell you my lessons through this. This was also an amazing campaign. Firstly, let me back up 6 months prior to this event. I hired a comic artist, and he was making amazing comics on the internet, and anything that he did was going to Mashable, to 9gag, and all sorts of viral places. And I hired him. He was in San Diego. I moved him all the way to San Francisco. I said, here's your job. Make the same comics, but for developers. And on the internet, if you actually Google pros and cons of dating a developer, something that he did. Halloween costumes for developers, something he did. And bunch of series of really successful comics he did. And they brought millions of people to our homepage. And if you remember my first slide about activation, we have seen the highest bounce rate on our homepages because none of those things worked for coding. It worked, people forwarded it, people found it funny, but then I realized my mom found it funny, and my mom is not actually a coding user. So every girl who dates a developer found it funny and then put it on Instagram, and everyone 9gag user found it funny because developers are geeks, and then those things are funny, they forward it, but then they come to coding.com, they go like, oh, this is not a comic site, and then they leave. So that was not good for us. It was good in the brand building perspective, but that much of bounce rate wasn't good. So what we found out that I said to myself, I have to find messaging. I have to use a text that only developers would understand. So if my mom saw it, she would be like, I don't even understand what this is saying. But if a developer sees it, they go like, whoa, 250 terabytes, like serious? Like, are you guys giving this much storage? I will sign up and I will actually forward. And that was the greatest thing that happened to us. 2.2 million impressions on Twitter, and we didn't even pay for it. Like, when this campaign was over, our cost of acquisition was 3 cents. And 3 cents is kind of unheard of. Usually this is $7 to $50 per activation. So 2 things about this. When you make campaigns as big, make it resource constrained. So one thing that people always think they are short of time, they don't have time right now, but they will have it tomorrow. And what happens in between is they forget about you. So if you don't want that to happen, then you go like, I could have given this 250 terabytes without asking a question. To me, it's my terabytes and I give it to whomever. But if I want to be successful, I want them to take action at this point that they see my ad. I don't want them to delay the action to a certain point. Even if they are missing their train, they will try to click and get this one before it's over. And that was the biggest
contribution to the success of this campaign. And the second part is that we gave 3 gigabytes to you and another gigabyte to the person that you invite. And if the person gets the invitation and signs up, you get extra 1 and he gets extra 1. So you don't feel selfish inviting people. You're actually doing them a favor. So always, if you're going to give something away, don't make it look like it's only for the person who invites other people. It should be win-win situation. So when I tell you, go to this restaurant, here's a coupon, it should give me something, and it should give him something. Therefore, I'm doing you a favor, versus saying, hey, please use this coupon because I'm gonna make $5 out of it. And then you go like, I will go there anyway. Why do I use your ticket to make, do something for you? And I feel like a jackass to ask this from you because, you're I'm asking you to give me money. So those were the 2 lessons from there. This was the first one, the first campaign of the same time, same thing. So you can also look at twitter.com crazy2 50 terabyte week, and you will see thousands and thousands of tweets that are asking people to join within that week. Literally, the computer turned off, literally. When you go to those Twitter feeds, you will not be able to find the bottom of it, regardless of your scrolling abilities. Like it was not unending scroll of tweets that people did that week. So while that's being done, I can take a marketing question, 1 or 2. Not working? Yes. It's both. Like you as a founder or a marketing person in a startup, you have to have a good feeling about that marketing thing. It almost, the same principles apply. Would you respond if something like that was happening? So you put yourself in the shoes of the user that you want a response from. So if that checks out, you go like, okay, this makes sense. So are you working on a startup? Do you have a specific area? We can use that as an example. Photographers. So what do they do? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. So if you have that site where you want people to upload pictures, and you want them to take that action, so you have to then ask yourself, what would be the correct incentive for me to upload a picture to this particular site? What do I gain out of it? So one thing then you could do is that you say, I won't take commission from you, the sales of your stock photo for the 3 months. And if you actually invite 10 more people and they sign up, not only I won't take those commissions from them, I will extend your period of non-commission by another 3 months. So every 10 people you add, you get 3 months of non-commission. So that's how I would think to solve that problem. So give me something that I will believe in your product and I will use it. Give me something, I can't come up with this, what would be the very first incentive, because on Koding, that was another thing that I was thinking about. So when you sign up, I immediately give you something, 5 gigabytes of storage on your VM.
So in your case, I wouldn't know how to solve that problem, but PayPal actually solved that problem by giving everyone $5 in their beginning. They said, if you sign up to PayPal, I'll give you $5. If you invite people, I'll give you $5 and give them $5. So they converted their first, I guess, 100,000 or million users that way. So, and it was actual dollars, so they spent that money for them. The cost of acquisition was $5 a piece. So through creative thinking like this, you can find solutions. And I cannot tell you that we have tested that before. It was a test, but we believed that it would work. And funny story, okay, I'll share it with you. So on Koding, we are coming up with this 100 terabyte idea. So for 100 terabyte to be depleted at the end of the week, it required 25,000 users to sign up. And at the time, we only have 100,000 users, so 25,000 looks like 1/4, right? We were like, okay guys, like if no one comes, then we will lose our face. Like at the end of the week, say that 5 people signed up and you have like 99 terabytes free and nobody used it. So we did a trick, so this is between us. We said, okay, let's make this counter go down to 0 at the end of the week. So 7 days later, regardless of how many people signed up, we would go to 0. And then we would say, okay, we failed this mission and we won't talk about it, you know, whatever. When we released it, we really didn't think that 100 terabytes would be gone. We would be like halfway through, whatever it is. And then when we released it, in 3 hours, we went through the 100 terabytes. And the counter is still showing 99.7. And the 25,000 in 3 hours, and at the end of the week, it was like 250,000 or 170,000 people signed up, and we had to like, you know, give some people more time because they like so many tweets are like streaming and then coming through, and people just couldn't get enough of it. And to us, that 5 gigabyte actually didn't mean anything. We weren't giving $5. So I give you 5 gigabytes, but if you don't use it, you don't cost me anything. So it was on all sides, very carefully thought out experiment. And at the end of the week, we were still showing like we had 20 terabytes free, but we had a lot, you know, we had exceeded our own expectations as a result. So, you know, if it had failed, it would be your case that we would say, we tried it and this didn't work, but we tried it, it worked, so I guess when it works, it's not an experiment. I guess you could say that about any marketing campaign. If it fails, it depends. Like if you are giving so little, like say I give 1 megabyte per user, then no one would be interested. Maybe if you made a miscalculation on that site, you can tweak the parameters and then run it again. And between every campaign, you need to have at least 3 months. So you can't just, you know, do this and the next week, hey, we increase the parameters now. Instead of 1 megabyte, we give you 1 gigabyte. People just get tired of seeing the same stuff. So it needs to have an element of surprise, and it needs to be a global hackathon once a year. So we're going to do it again this year, and it's going to have the, last year we have Google, Facebook, everybody in the Silicon Valley actually contributed as a sponsor. I can't make another one and achieve the same results. So it is a tricky place you have to be careful about. If this didn't work, I wouldn't do this the next, 3 months later, I would do it very differently. So these are the tweets. It was really, really great. So I will go towards the next one. So we collected data, executed marketing campaigns, cared about all 5 steps of the execution process, but what exactly happened? So you have the users, and then the area that I'm going to cover now is the focus. The focus is everything about your startup. So for example, I just mentioned earlier that we had to focus on million people versus companies. Like you have to really have focus. You can't just go to a random company and then that promises you $1 million deal and then you change your product, you pivot your product because there's this one dude who told you something. You can't do that because you will kill your startup. There are lots of startups that went down because of that reason. So I'm going to now spend time. I got my million users and let's see what happened. We saw 10,000 plus companies signed up for Koding, yay. But met up quickly, look at this data set. So we have Amazon, Microsoft, Oracle, CGI, Google, and we have BBC and Bayer. So BBC, as you guys know, it's an English television channel, and Bayer is a pharmaceutical company, one of the biggest companies in the world. And we have Apple, we have like 1,200 people from Microsoft. So these are the guys from @Microsoft.com, @Abbott.com, @Google.com signing up for Koding. We have Delta, you know, airlines company. Dell, Credit Suisse is a fintech, it's a bank. So we have hotels, we have pizza delivery, we have cable companies, we have everyone in the planet. So this is great that you have Porsche and Rackspace on the same slide deck, but what do you do with this data? So these companies, plus this happened. There's Berkeley University, Stanford University, Cornell, RIT, MIT, Harvard. They started using Koding to actually teach computer science classes. And now I, as a founder, as a CEO with 15 people, I go like, how do I create a product for everybody? Would be the wrong question to ask. So what do I do with this data? Is focus. So when you create this massive growth, and I hope you can because it's great, nobody questions your product anymore, nobody questions the validity of the solution that you have done, nobody questions your execution capabilities, nobody questions any of that. Now people will come to the point where you previously mentioned, how do you make money? So now we come to that stage, how do you make money? So if I go and try to create a product where a fintech company or an entertainment company, pizza delivery company, bank, and this and that company could use at the same time with universities, I would kill myself. There is no way I can create a company of 250 people right now. Even if I raise $100 million, it just doesn't matter. You can't scale from here to there that quickly. So in Koding, we just chose this. We said, out of all these companies, who are the ones that would use Koding immediately, tomorrow? Like if we actually take Koding, they wouldn't tell me, oh, 6 months from now or 12 months from now, let me talk to this guy, let me talk to this guy, let me talk to this dude. We decided that if you're below 10, you're not really interested in Koding because it's not that painful to you to get one more developer to your company just yet. So we decided that below 10, we will give it out for free because you are my potential future customer and my current product set is going to satisfy you. You will really like it, but you won't pay the amount of money that I want from you. So below 10, we go like, okay, future customer, thank you very much, come in and use the product, it's all yours. Hopefully you will become a great company and you will start paying me. From 10 to 100 was our sweet spot. Startup that is growing, that wants to get developers but doesn't have a sysadmin. He doesn't want to deal with a sysadmin. He doesn't want to deal with the complexities of scaling the team. So that is like a great company size for us. But if out of 100 people, only 5 are developers, then that means maybe you are doing film company or media company or some company that CEO doesn't care less about how technicality is dealt with. So in that case, that 100 people company doesn't really become a Koding customer. So we said 50% of those developers of the 100 needs to be developers. So that would signal us that these guys are a high-tech startup, and they are onboarding developers a lot. So one thing that I didn't mention, out of these 50% developers, we ask companies how many of them are remote. So if you have a lot of these developers spread across the globe, then those guys come to us and say, shut up and take my money. Because for them, it's really, really, really painful. So focus is I can't stress this enough, but this is the most important thing that you have to do. And data collection then becomes really important. You can't, if I ask my million users the focus question, they could send me everywhere. If I ask all the companies that are using Koding, what do you want me to build? They, eBay would tell me something else, Amazon would tell me something else, BBC would tell me something else, financial company would tell me something else. So by not focusing on those companies, I know, okay, which one makes the most sense, which one is the easiest to get to for me, how can I sell Koding to 100,000 companies and charge them from $2,000 to $5,000 a month? This was my answer. Because if I charge $5,000 to a company, they should benefit from my product at least $50,000. So every time, if you remember the first charts, that I said that Koding is saving 4 weeks per developer, and if you divide it by the developer salary, if you onboard 10 developers throughout the year, you've already saved 10 times more than the money you have paid Koding. And 10%, how do I get to that amount? Is by real estate guys. They find you an apartment, take a 10% off the yearly thing. So we actually are used to this kind of a transaction. So I saved you money, you didn't look for all the apartments in the city, I get you an apartment, you pay me 10% commission, you're fine with that kind of money. So, articulating the opportunity is the next thing. So this is going to be the last point that I'm going to make. How are you relevant in the ecosystem, and what are you actually doing to make it better? So this is a lot of text. I'm going to explain to you on this one. So how Koding is relevant to third parties and how it becomes indispensable to them. So today, Amazon, as you guys know, the most known cloud service provider, they made $3 billion from servers, but they only host production servers. So when you make MyMagic.mi, you host it on Amazon. But before that website is gone to Amazon, it is developed on a developer's machine. So Koding changes that. Koding says nothing gets installed to the laptop anymore. It is going to be in the cloud. So we actually create this next thing. Every developer joins a company, starts pulling servers from Amazon. Today, they can't do it because Amazon is too complicated for anyone to get around. With Koding, anybody who joins a group, we will pull through that text file 5 servers from Amazon. So if you make a calculation, so when they invited us to Seattle, I thought I was a genius. I just put this calculation together and I said, look, there are 24 million developers in the world. And then if average developer machine is 8 gigabytes of RAM, it is equivalent to $200 a month worth Amazon machine times 10% of the developers, you would make $6 billion a year. So I told Amazon, I seriously thought that this was my unique idea. When I was in Seattle and talking to Amazon, the guy in front of me said, Devrim, it's actually 6.5. So they already have calculated this, and they already have known that this is going to be our next iteration. So from the production environment, developers are using cloud. So just to give you a simple example, right now, a laptop machine is maximum 16 gigabytes of RAM at the MacBook store. So when you start developing a data science project, if you're going to do DNA analysis, and most of you maybe will do hardware startups, so you need petabytes of data to be stored in these VMs, and you want to get 200 gigabytes of RAM and CPUs to give it to your developers so that they can work. So Koding allows that to happen inside the cloud, and everybody is happy. And Amazon is the happiest. When Amazon is the happiest, their competitors are also want to get to the bandwagon. So coding is now, Microsoft put 12 developers from their side to write coding integration to Azure. I said, look, I'm a startup. I'm not going to spend any dime on your, non-existent user base compared to AWS because they are starting. They are great, but I mean, truth be told, their market share is it's really something that I, as a startup, can't spend 6 months of my money and my time. And then we sat down and we said, okay, this makes sense, and please give us your developers to write the, and then they happily do it. We launched a marketing campaign with DigitalOcean. So if you have more than 10 people company and 50% of you are developers, Amazon, Azure, and DigitalOcean are going to give $150,000 of cloud credits if you sign up for coding. So that's going to be my next marketing wave. I will say not only you will get a great product, you will get a lot of cloud credits because these guys want you to start using cloud resources versus laptops. This is what makes coding work. So from here, if we start making this transition, then Google Cloud, Amazon Cloud, Microsoft Cloud starts to market our product to the companies that they already have because we make them money. This is the third party becoming indispensable slide. I touched on it a little bit. Collect data from future customers separately. So I have free users, I have visitors, I have customers, and I have third parties. So I ask them different set of questions. And I survey CTOs and CEOs for revenue opportunities. MIT says this, Odesk says that, Oracle says this, Facebook says that, Seagate says this. So I have 100 people from the main stakeholders. We went to them, we showed them the product before we built and while we were building and after we built. And then Facebook is going to use coding to hire new developers. They're not going to use Facebook to make Facebook.com, but they are hiring so many developers around the world. They are going to use coding to interview new candidates. MIT is teaching CS. And the professor at MIT told me that, Devrim, this is great because students are now helping each other, so I don't have to be in the process all the time. So Oracle said developers are no sysadmins, coding makes them happy. And they have a similar solution in-house, but they said coding did it better. So these are the data collection stuff. And this is what I go and talk to CTOs and CEOs, and I say that, you know what, those laptops are not going to be with you for long because this is the future. There's going to be hundreds of servers. There's not going to be MySQLs or Postgres or 5 developers working on your product. We have to have this massive projects that even as a startup, you should be able to hire 1,000 developers to your project. And maybe one fixes a bug and leaves your company the next day. It shouldn't matter. It shouldn't cost you so much money. And once we do this, I think software development is going to be much better and more fun around the world. So this is my last slide. So I want to finish with startup is a lot of work, but it's worth it. I don't know if I became a better person or worse throughout this process. I want to tell you a couple of personal stories. I have more tolerance to people that I interview, I work with, I understand their shortcomings, and I became a better person in terms of setting expectations. When I started my startup journey years ago, I expected everything from everybody. So I believe that if I told you my vision, you would find out how to implement the details. And I found out that people are not built that way. Some people are like that, and some people are not like that. Some people just want to know what exactly turn-by-turn navigation Some people only want to know, we are going to New York, figure it out. If it's going to be the plane, if it's going to be the ship, and whatever is required. So I would tell you, my personal story is now I made that distinction. Who I'm hiring to my company, and what category is that person? Is that turn-by-turn person? Because those guys are great, very meticulous Swiss watchmakers, so they live with a magnifying glass, and then they work on small details of every little thing. So I could never build a Swiss watch, because to me it's too much detailed work, my brain can't handle it. But I can build a product like this, because I understand this entire thing. And one discussion with my board member was, he hates salespeople. He thinks that we should never hire salespeople, and he has a point. But I told him, like, why don't we actually look at sales process like we look at code? So in code, you have classes, you have instances, and then you derive from those instances and you make a program work. With salespeople, it will be the same. Like, you just set up a process, and then you say, this is the first guy, this is the second guy, and this is how we make this process work. To me, universe is code. Physics and mathematics is code. It's, you know, when we fall in love, it's software actually melding and merging together. So to me, I think in terms of code, it's software. So we don't, like, I mean, we are basically very advanced robots, and we don't know who created us. But it doesn't change that we have a brain, we have computing power, we have limited RAM, we have bodies, and then I can hear, that's my sound card, I can see, that's my webcam, and my brain can just, you are basically parsing my voice in your brain, and hopefully it makes sense. So to me, this entire thing, this entire startup journey is possible, and it is better if you're the type 1. You can't deal with details, but you see the clear picture from high above, then you are a founder type. And I would advise you to actually do it. If you are dealing with a lot of details in your life, and then you have an agenda that's always full, even if your best friend wants to go to a theater and you can only give him a date a week ahead because everything is planned in your life, then you are type 2. You're a great guy. Nothing is wrong with you. But this cannot be done with such planning. This is a stupid person's job. Like a stupid person who sees a cliff and water and jumps. So the type 2 person is going to save this guy's life, because that's, you know, that guy's too stupid, because he's like, nothing gonna happen, man. I just, you know, jumped 10 times before. This is going to be one of them, and he's gonna kill himself, and that's me. So I look at opportunities, and I can't wait to jump, and someone needs to pull me back, and that's the type 2 personality. So the type 2 is Tim Cook, and type 1 is Steve Jobs. So one actually looks at the opportunity and says, if you don't do it, I'll fire you. Tim Cook is going to be the logistics guy, and he's going to make 6S and 7 in a much predictable scale. So that's my 4 years of journey in a startup. It's really so much fun. The second thing that I want to close on is the culture that everybody talks about in a startup. Culture starts with you. If you're a horrible person, your culture is going to be horrible. There's no way around it. It just is, if you don't meditate, you have a stressful organization. It's just, you know, going to be the case. If you're stressed out about catching the next bus or catching the next train, you're going to have a really, really stressed organization, because you will treat people who are not stressed out enough, you will think that they're not working as hard as they should. And this is what I realized from moving from New York to San Francisco. In New York, if you're in a cab, they want to kick you out. They want to get your money as soon as possible and get to the next customer. In San Francisco, they take their time. They take your car, they thank you, and, you know, they take you to your destination. And everything in San Francisco is done more flexible, more relaxed manner. Whereas in New York, it's very rushed. So you can understand by looking at their culture. So the New York is stock exchange. If you lose it by a second, you are out of business. There is no time to think. It just is like you gotta be a cheetah, and you see a raw meat, you gotta just take it. There is no way out. So that city shapes a culture of, if you see something, grab it. In San Francisco, if I'm not thinking about this hard enough, if I'm not in my cave and then close my eyes and meditate and say, you know what, please just give me the correct ideas, I have to think. I have to think a lot before I do any of these things. It's just is not going to be 1 second after another. So that's why San Francisco is doing what San Francisco is doing best. It creates the startups that are great, that are a lot of thought and flawless execution, but there is no rush. And in some companies there is rush, and I think you have to decide what kind of person you are before you start a company. And that is going to determine your success. So if you have any other personal questions, I'm happy to answer them. So that's my presentation. Thanks for listening.